Atlas RFID was founded in 2007 to bridge the gap between auto ID and efficiency-conscious firms. Our software product, Jovix, utilizes RFID and barcodes to track materials from fabrication to installation, both online and via mobile. This is material readiness, and that means skilled labor, including welders, pipe fitters, and installation crews, spend less time waiting on materials and more time on tools. Jovix has been deployed on over 300 sites in 10 countries spanning 5 continents.
Welcome to the Jovix webinar. We're going to be covering a case study today that shows how Jovix is helping displace the use of archaic whiteboards in the trailer. This is Jessica Vance, Jovix Marketing Director, and with me today are two of my Canadian counterparts. I have Dave Beaton and Ryan Sweeney. David Beaton is our VP of Product Strategy and has implemented Jovix on sites prior to joining the team here. And Ryan Sweeney, our Jovix System Manager, who has experience on projects in Canada, US, South Korea, UAE, and Kuwait, just to name a few. Welcome, guys.
Hey, thank you, Jessica. It's really good to be here.
Perfect. Well, I think Ryan's going to kick off with a safety moment, and then we will jump right in.
Thank you, Jessica. In construction, we always talk about using the right tool for the job. Sometimes that's a drill, other times it's a hammer, but we often forget that this applies to PPE. Having worked up north in the winter cold of Fort McMurray, Canada, or in the heat of the Middle East, I have found that safety glasses have the same requirements. It is important to use different styles of glasses based on the working conditions. The simple rules that I follow with eyewear are: tinted glasses are okay on bright and sunny days out in the laydown, and clear glasses are best when it is overcast, working inside, or on night shift. Using incorrect eyewear can be just as hazardous as using the incorrect tool.
That's great. Thank you very much, Ryan. The importance of safety glasses can't go understated. And that's either on the project site or at your home as well. You know, whether you're mowing the lawn or doing work around the house, using a drill or what have you, it's important to remember that eye protection is of the utmost importance. Thank you very much for that safety topic. Let's take a minute now and dive into the subject matter of this particular webinar, and that is the use of whiteboards. Overall, though, what I'd like to talk about is disrupting the status quo. And right now, this scene that you see in front of you on the screen is something that's very common across project sites and construction sites worldwide, where you have whiteboards with data density and lots of information, a high level of saturation. However, what we encounter is we are not looking at real-time visibility of information. We are missing the tie to real-time data visibility due to the fact that the employees have to constantly manage this data set. The velocity, if you will, the throughput of this information is a lot lower than it should be. Not to mention that visibility is lacking too for those that aren't in the room to see this whiteboard. Overall, it's a main collaboration tool that I've used several times in the past. I've had them in my offices. My employees have used them, whether it be in my warehouse trailer or materials management staff using it for running meetings. You know, it's very commonplace. And the idea is we are surrounded by things such as this whiteboard that have become such mainstay in our day-to-day life. We have the capability, though, to revolutionize this and disrupt this status quo and use the power of Jovix and the data of Jovix in order to make this so much better. Right now, what we're seeing is the whiteboard is very highly functional. It's a great collaboration tool. It gives you the ability to surround your team around it and see what's going on. But unfortunately, it is really highly inefficient. On this one example, we were finding that we were spending 2 to 3 hours per day managing this data set. The data becomes stale. It's untrustworthy. Like I said earlier, it's not visible from a real-time visibility standpoint. And not only that, but I want my guys actually using this 2 to 3 hours to do something to progress construction. I want them solving problems. I want them in the system working on real, tangible, progressible work, not maintaining a whiteboard. I hope you'd agree, Ryan. And what I'd like to do now is talk a little bit about the specifics of the project where you saw this opportunity for disrupting something that is so mainstay within the construction environment, these whiteboards. Talk to me a little bit about the project that you were working on and some of the history behind how this came to be.
Yeah, thank you, David. So on the mega project that I was working on in the Middle East, I had the opportunity to work more closely with the field coordinators and the laydown supervisors. And for me, it was a real eye-opener in terms of how difficult it can be to manage their time and their job. The project has several contractors, very complex logistics, and at its peak, upwards of 11,000 people on site. While working in the offsite steel laydown yard, it was brought to my attention that the team was managing a large and intricate whiteboard, and it actually wasn't just a whiteboard, it was 3 whiteboards. The board was being used to manage progress of their daily receiving, picking, and issuing activities. They were using it to facilitate weekly meetings with their various contractors and also to plan their daily activities for the craft personnel. The board was impressive and it was extremely valuable, but I just noted that the effort required to maintain the board was a burden, and the coordinators were having difficulty keeping up and maintaining the board itself. So due to the structure of this project, the whiteboard, again, it was valuable. Not only was it valuable, it was unfortunately essential because the material team was only responsible for the picking and staging of material, but they weren't responsible for the issuance or delivery. That would only occur when construction sent out a truck for pickup. This is where I noted that there was a lack of insight, and it was necessary that they have the ability to quickly call out how many pick tickets and items by contractor and by date that were staged for issuance, but not yet picked up by construction. So to me, I was thinking there has to be a solution. After seeing the challenge, I thought since we are using Jovix on this project and that the server provides value to the individual user, there must be a way to customize and project the server level data to a wider audience than just one person sitting in front of their computer. The first step was to create a custom pick list view within Jovix that showed a filter of all pick lists not yet issued and their current progress, and they needed to be sorted by contractor and by date. As a side note, this is actually my favorite piece of functionality within the Jovix tool. The ability to customize and format your view to the individual user's needs has revolutionized the ability for the coordinator to perform their job. So once the custom view was created, the ability to consume this data as a group was required. If we are going to replace a whiteboard, as David mentioned before, we would need something of a similar size. One of the good attributes or the best attributes of a whiteboard is that it is large and you have the ability for many people to gather around it to discuss and collaborate. To accommodate for this, I conducted a brief time study and received feedback on the length of time that the coordinators were spending to maintain the board. I gathered this information and I put a business case together for the director of materials and pitched him a solution that would, as David noted before, save his workers 2 to 3 man hours per day, provide real-time status updates, and eliminate the whiteboard. With a promise like that, he was elated and said he would do anything he could to help. So I asked him, can you provide us with a larger monitor so that I can bring this new dashboard to life? And he did me one better, and within 72 hours, he had procured and installed 3 55-inch flat screen TVs. So the results. Based on my experience with Jovix and seeing the level of effort required to maintain the whiteboard, I knew that implementing the dashboard would have a positive impact. But even I didn't realize how quickly that would occur and how well it would be received. Due to the excitement surrounding the new tool and its real-time visibility, the first day of using the dashboard allowed for the identification, signing, issuing, and pickup of 8 outstanding pick tickets and the resolution of missing materials in a single contractor meeting. The buy-in was immediate, and the Jovix dashboard is used daily to set priorities, manage progress, and host the contractor meetings. But my personal favorite thing about all of this is that the dashboard stays on screen all day long so that everyone has visibility at any time. So when I had first arrived to the steel laydown and I had seen this whiteboard and I had discussed it with Aaron, who was the main structural coordinator, he was telling me that this whiteboard, though he said it only consumes 2 to 3 hours of his day, he feels like that he doesn't have time to do anything else. You know, these 2 to 3 hours he's spending maintaining the whiteboard is 2 or 3 hours he could spend doing more productive work, like actually chasing down the contractor to take material, or actually coordinating his team to make sure they're picking and issuing the priorities. And you know, this was our pre-conversation to the Jovix dashboard, and then post the rollout after the first day. I mean, he told me that it had changed his working life. Like the difference that it had made for him was so profound that he felt that he was more productive because of this. And for me, as a Jovix system manager, that is our goal to being on site. You know, we're there to not only set up this tool for the client to use, but at the end of the day, we're there to make people's jobs easier. And that is the type of feedback that I personally like to hear. That lets me know that I'm doing my job.
Yeah, that sounds great, Ryan. Thank you so much for running us through how this revolutionary change, and I use revolutionary because what you're doing is you're taking the whiteboard, you're taking something, like I said earlier, that's so ingrained in the way that we do business, and you're changing the way that we interpret that information by leveraging the data that's already existing in Jovix, right? All we needed to do was make a custom screen view and procure the 55-inch flat screen TVs. It doesn't get much easier than that. And what we were able to achieve by doing this is providing these users with a technological leverage in order to disrupt that status quo, that day-to-day, looking at that whiteboard and just thinking that this is just the way it is. You were able to disrupt that by leveraging our Jovix technology and allow this technology to not only revolutionize this archaic communication style, but also provide the exact same output, facilitating and freeing up massive amounts of man-hour expenditures to maintain it. We also have the ability here to still collaborate around this screen. So there's a team structure, there's a tribal alignment that happens when a team surrounds this whiteboard and starts talking about what needs to be done and prioritizing work and prioritizing tasks. This collaborative nature is still capable using these 55-inch screens versus the whiteboard. We have to take a look at all the other things that we have within our work environment and realize that there's many things that can be disrupted, not only the whiteboard, but there's other activities that we should be thinking about, thinking outside the box, no different than what you did here, Ryan. And we need to be looking at those type of opportunities in order to ensure that we're maximizing the impact that we have, using the data that we have within Jovix and leveraging that in order to make our world a lot better. So thank you very much for running us through this. This has been very eye-opening, and I'm glad that you had the foresight and the premonition in order to put this into work. We are going to move into the questions now. Jessica, is there any questions in the queue?
Yeah, David, we've actually had some questions popping up during the webinar. So let's take a few minutes to answer those. And everybody on the line, if you've got some lingering questions, go ahead and type those into the GoToWebinar window, or feel free to shoot an email over to info@atlasrfid.com, and we'll be sure to answer those. So guys, I'm shooting a question over your way if you want to take the first question from the queue.
Hi, Jessica. Yeah, it's Ryan here. I have first question that I'm reading is, how long did it take to set up this custom dashboard view? And as was noted a couple of times, we already have this data in Jovix, so the customization of Jovix allows you to drag columns into your screen. So any data point that you're capturing can be dragged into your screen and viewed immediately. So the only time that this really required was understanding what information they wanted to see, and it was just as simple as dragging those columns into the screen and displaying it in a way that made sense.
Got it, thank you. Let's see, we've got one more question. When the pick ticket is completed, so this is definitely a Jovix user, When the pick ticket is completed, have you set up the feature to automatically email the ready to pick up notification to the contractor? Also, can you show on the dashboard, that the email was sent?
That's a great question. On this particular project, the contractor end users were not using Jovix. It was being used by the EPC themselves, so notifications weren't available or required in this instance.
Got it. Okay. Let's see. Can the custom dashboard be set up for other functions within Jovix?
Yes, it can. So another entity that this would work quite well for, and I've done it in the past on other projects, though we never, set up the TVs or anything like that. But for shipments, we used to do it in our morning toolbox talk. The coordinators, the admin would print off the list of incoming shipments expected for that day, and we discuss them as a group. But you could just as easily use that function to show which shipments you have incoming that day. Or you could also keep them on the board and show the progress of the shipments that you have received that were expected that day.
Okay. Let's see, a question. Can you run the TV screen separate from your desktop on the same PC, or would you need to have a dedicated laptop just for the TV?
Great question. So on this particular project, we had TVs set up in different locations. One was at the offsite warehouse or laydown. One was in the warehouse. At the offsite laydown, we ran it off of a single computer. And what we did is we did an extend display. So it's like having two monitors hooked up to your own screen, and we just did an extend display. So on the monitor in front of the user was his, normal PC, and on the other monitor was the Jovix dashboard. And then at the warehouse, they actually went out and they were procuring a dedicated computer for this. So you can do it either way.
Got it. It's good to have options. Let's see. Somebody wanted to elaborate a little bit on the attributes that for this project made the whiteboard valuable and really for any other project that we might use it on.
Yeah, perfect. So as I noted in one of the first questions there, the contractors weren't using Jovix on this project. So, and we needed to you needed a constant visual reminder of what you have picked for them and what was available. There were a couple hundred pick tickets in the queue at any given time when we rolled this out. And if you're picking material and staging them for a long period of time, you're essentially wasting man hours picking material that's potentially not required or needed at that moment. And so it was a good indicator of how much stuff is sitting, because generally, when material is picked, it's supposed to be either picked up or delivered within a couple of days. So when things started to be sitting for 1 to 2 weeks, it was a good visual for the coordinator team to go back to construction and say, listen, you asked for this material 2 weeks ago and we've had it picked and you've yet to pick it up. So they could use it to really manage their time. And this was one of the big things, was time management. This board really helped with that.
Yeah, that 2 to 3 hours definitely rings in my mind. Are you able to have a couple of rotating screens on the dashboard? They give some examples. So a PO screen that flips to material requests and then to pick tickets.
You can set it up. So on this particular one, though I didn't talk about it, we ran a split screen between the withdrawal requests and the pick tickets. So you could see the corresponding MWR for the pick tickets, because the way Jovix works, it allows you to have multiple pick tickets per request. So we could actually see the progress of the MWR as well as the pick tickets.
Okay, got it. If for some reason the TV dies, could you print the dashboard for use until the TV is fixed?
The good thing about this is it is just your Jovix setup. So this is your normal Jovix screen. I mean, if you wanted to print it off, you could, but this is your standard login view. This is what Aaron saw every time he logged into Jovix. So anyone who had access could log in and see this. But if you wanted to print it off, it would be just like any other program that you can print from your computer.
Right. Yeah. And the goal here is to get away from, unneeded paper on the job site. So it's nice that technology is in everyone's hands. All right, we've got one more question unless another one pops in. So you mentioned the volume and velocity. Can you give an idea of how much information was being managed on this board or could be managed on a board?
Yeah, so again, I just mentioned it just a second ago. When this board was implemented, there were, I believe, 160 outstanding pick tickets or that were in the process of picking and or picked and staged for issue. So, and at that time, it wasn't quite peak, so you can only imagine that the volume could continue to grow. So there was a lot of transactions coming through. There was, I think 30 new pick tickets were being created a day. So managing the new ones would have been time consuming, let alone the existing ones that were already on the board.
Right. Question from Cynthia. Hey, Cynthia, nice to see you on the webinar. When schedule on pick ticket changes as construction access changes, would that instantly update the screens and be forwarded to the laydown yards?
So if the date required is necessary to change on a pick ticket, that can be changed in Jovix, and if that's changed in Jovix, that would change in the filters. The way the dashboard was set up, it was filtered by date. So anything, it was basically filtered oldest to newest. So all of the oldest items were on top, so they were most visible. So if something got updated to a farther out future date, then that would just drop down to the bottom.
Got it. Makes sense. All right, we'll give just a few seconds if there's any other questions out there or if we didn't answer those completely. And I will add, if you have any questions, like I said, you can email us at info@atlasrfid.com. Oh, we do have one more question. Are you able to provide performance data such as the number of days a load of materials are waiting for pickup?
Specific to this project, I don't know if I can give that information, but definitely one of the motivating factors was the fact that the materials team was, they were scrambling and doing their best to hit deadlines to have material available, and then the items weren't getting picked up when they were supposed to be. So that was one of the driving motivators as well, definitely, that there was a little bit of slippage on the expected date that materials were to be picked up. So this definitely helped put a visual of just how much stuff was being picked but not picked up when it was supposed to be picked up.
Great. All right. So yep, check us out, jovix.com. If we didn't answer your question, feel free to shoot us an email at info@atlasrfid.com. And there will be a short survey at the end of the webinar. So if there are some other topics that you would love to hear from us about or to ask questions about, feel free to enter that there. And we thank you for your time. We'll talk to you next time.